we're talking about a very divisive topic. There's a war being waged on the battlefield of LinkedIn on whether or not CISOs should be technical or not. We're going to get into that and a couple other topics today.
This is episode 23 of the DTF Cyber Podcast. I'm Damien.
This is Troy.
And it's your boy Fern. Let's go. Episode 23. And on this special occasion, ours truly, Troy Wilkinson, is dripping with swag. I don't know if you can see. You can see it's close. What are you wearing, Troy?
Yeah, so this is my F1 Aston Martin team. Quarter zip, just getting in the spirit. I was not a fan of F1 at all until it came here to Las Vegas, but man, it is exciting to go out there and enjoy it. So again, F1 is coming to Vegas. It's a huge party. If you get a chance to come check it out, highly recommend it. Go ask for.
Did you pitch that just to get free tickets? I'm just curious if you're sponsored.
We usually watch from the Cosmo. I don't know if you guys have been to F1, but the Cosmo has a really great vantage point right over the racetrack. So, some friends will get together, get a suite looking over the racetrack, and we'll just hang out there, party. Some of those tickets can get quite expensive.
The only hotel on the strip that has a balcony.
True story, yeah.
Is the Cosmo?
Yeah. So that's the trick, right? If you can, now, Troy, you're not going to be able to get those rooms because people are going to try to get rooms.
Well, do you already have the room?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I was saying next year, though.
I'm going to get that for a year out. And definitely get a few folks together. You get one of those suites that could be quite expensive, but you can chop it up.
Yeah, okay. I didn't realize that. Last time I went to Vegas, it was right after the F1. And they, the walkways between the buildings, like kind of like an overpass. What do they call it? The boardwalk? Or I'm sure it has a special name in Vegas, but I'm not a local, so I don't know.
The walkways, yeah, they plaster them up so you can't stand there.
Yeah. I was like, wait, you can't even watch from walking from one place to another. That was interesting to me. So the fact that you have a whole suite just means that if I go.
The problem is how do you get into the Cosmo if the whole strip is locked down? I mean, it's hard to drive in there and leave.
Yeah, Harmon on the backside is open. So if you're coming up Harmon from, let's say.
Oh, yeah, there's an exit off the 15, right? Off to Harmon.
Yeah, sometimes that one is closed as well. So you got to actually go down Valley View, Jones, Decatur to Harmon. But then you can just drive right into the back entrance of the Cosmo.
All right.
Interesting. Well,
local
side baseball. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of so here's another thing most people don't realize is that you can get to the Waste Management Open from the Scottsdale Princess.
Oh, yeah.
Most people. So this is a pro tip, by the way.
Well, it depends on where if you're going to 16, that's quite a far walk.
Yeah, but so there's options. You can go into the front entrance, the main entrance, and it's just as long of a walk, right? So pro tip that I learned 6-7 years ago, and you can't do it anymore, is you go to the Scottsdale Princess, you valet your car, and from valet, you hop on one of their little shuttles, and they take you to the front. That's how you get to the front without having to park and walk. Now, you can't shuttle unless you have, or the valet at the time was $20. Now it's $60, right? But now you need a room.
Yeah.
So what you do now is you just valet, and then you walk through the back to the courthouse area, and then there's the back entrance. And I forget which course it is, but it's towards the back of the.
Good thing they don't listen to this podcast, right? Because they'll shut down that back door. Yeah,
well, the last time I tried it didn't work as well as I would have hoped. So I think they've kind of, basically it's kind of like when someone has a coupon to save 50% and then you go to the store and we don't have it anymore. It's kind of situation. You can't really do it anymore. So back in my day, that's how I would get to the Waste Management Opens. Valet, $20, and then ride that shuttle.
People not local in Phoenix don't know waste management.
Yeah, they stopped listening 10 seconds ago. So let's get
back around to DTF Cyber Podcast. Vegas has a tremendous local security leaders group, and we usually get together during these events like F1 or Super Bowl or other, conferences to do these type of things together. So I'm not sure. I know Phoenix has a fantastic group of folks as well, but, I don't know a community like Vegas that has such a tight knit leadership group here that get together and hang out and do fun things together as a kind of group or a family like the F1. It's pretty cool.
I'm sure there are. I just don't know if I'm in those circles. I might be this year. Things might change this year. But what I can tell you is that there is a community online on LinkedIn where people are fighting back and forth on one key topic. And what's interesting about this post, so for anyone that doesn't know, LinkedIn is terrible when it comes to reach. Terrible. You might get 100 people to see your post and you might get one person that likes it. Maybe 2, maybe 3. So for perspective, I say that because I'm looking at this post right now and there's over 845 reactions to this post, which by nature of scale, you figure 3% roughly react to a post. That's a lot. That's upwards of 40,000.
Well, when you have a topic that's maybe a little, is it controversial? I don't think so, but maybe opposite ends of the spectrum of where people think on this topic, where they stand.
It's definitely, what's the term? Divisive? No. Yes.
A little spicy. Yeah.
A little spicy. We'll call it a little spicy. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes because I like Cliff Notes based on the last podcast.
Did you use AI for this?
No, this has not been run through AI. So it's 100% from my head. And what they're saying is, does a CISO need to be technical? That's the leading question. And the thought is, how can that even be a serious question? So already before we even get into it, we know where this person stands on the topic. And so then they follow up that with, does a CFO need to know math? Does a chief legal counsel need to understand the law? That's the basis of the argument. I see some flaws with this argument because knowing math is like rudimentary skill for a CFO. Technical is not a rudimentary skill for a CISO, right?
Okay.
So the parallel doesn't exist. In this example, where they're drawing their conclusion isn't a like for like.
I think the question is, does the CFO need to know tax accounting or forensic accounting? You have to go deeper than, do they need to know math? Exactly.
So exactly what I'm saying is the metaphor or the comparison isn't even equal. That's like saying, does a parent need to know how to cook? What do you mean? Like, well, you have to cook for your kids. If you can't cook, you can't raise kids. That's not even how it works, right? So,
but do you know how to use DoorDash?
There's ways that you can parent without actually parenting. So I guess where this is going is that this person kind of buckles down and says, let's be clear. There are 14 technical disciplines in cybersecurity. No one is excellent in all of them. So I think they're kind of opening the door to say you don't have to be technical in everything, but you have to be technical. And there are 14 areas of expertise where you can be technical in. And they're saying you need to have hands-on experience, such as network security, incident response, risk assessment, and identity management. There are, as far as baselines go, you have to have worked in some essential cyber operations role. So they're saying now they're like saying you need to have experience, be technical, and have the experience, right? And it has to be at the entry level role. You have to have led a team. What else? And that gives you a strong understanding of cyber operations, people skills, collaboration, and teamwork. So now they're saying, originally it was, do you need to be technical or not? And now they're kind of just piling on a bunch of other things. It's like they just open the buffet and say, here's all these other things. So it is getting interesting as you go further along, because it's like they lead with one thought, but then they add on to it.
Okay. I didn't, I saw the post. I didn't read through all the comments. I just didn't have time to go through them.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you this. What's your opinion? Being for someone who's never been a CISO, pretty new to the cyber game, hopefully you know two pretty good.
Yeah, I know at least two experts.
What's your take on it, Fern? Give us the average Fern take on this.
I think you could essentially be from any discipline of life, and you can be a CISO to some extent. I think what's more important is the team that you build, the competence and skills that they have, and the trust that you instill in your team to be able to deliver the outcomes that you need as a leader. I see a lot of CISOs as being looked at from different positions, and people look up to them, but they don't necessarily look up to them for their technical skills or their leadership. It's from facets from different areas, right? And I think it's important to have some expertise in certain areas, and it's almost like a jack of all trades, right? And the phrase, and forgive me for not quoting it 100%, but it's, a jack of all trades is a master of none, right? And I think in a lot of ways, a CISO is essentially a jack of all trades. They have competence in these different areas, and they bring all those together, but they rely on their teams more so to help reinforce what they're trying to accomplish. But I think to some extent, having the ability to sniff out the bullshit is important. Do you need to be 100% technical? No. But I think you have to know enough to be able to know without more than just a gut feeling when something is wrong. And the only way you know that is by having at least somewhat of a understanding technically. You don't have to be technical in everything, but at least a little bit to be able to sniff out the, the bullshit. That's my...
the way I hear it, here's what I would say is if your team is bullshitting you, you have bigger problems.
Yeah. Well, not just a team. It could just be one person. Right? You don't want to put on the team. It could be one person. And that happens, right? There are bad apples in the bunch. And you can expect that at some point in anyone's career, you will run across a bad apple.
Or there's somebody's using AI that's hallucinating, like we talked about last week. Mm-hmm. Right?
I'm not one way or the other. I think I'm like kind of in the middle. Because I know a lot of really good people in the roles that they have. And some of them fall in the technical, some of them don't. Some of them fall somewhere in the middle.
How would you characterize me or Troy in that group?
I would say Troy and you are probably very similar. But I don't know how Troy does it. But he just seems like super polished. Like if he was like a Tesla car, like a Cybertruck, he'd be like the one. Like you guys, so imagine you guys are both Cybertrucks riding down the street. He's the one that looks like a mirror. He's like super polished. Nothing that he says, you can never find anything wrong with it, at least for me. But you guys are both Cybertrucks, right? You guys can pull your weight. You guys can pull more than other trucks. You guys are essentially like, I would say, long range, right? You guys can get the job done, right? It's just he's a little bit shinier. And that's probably just from more experience. But I think you would even agree, without me saying that it's a very accurate comparison.
I mean, I appreciate that. But I think, there's a lot of nuance to this topic that, we could dive into. And Damon, you said it best in the beginning, thinking about being a CFO versus a forensic accountant, right? You have to have a basic level of understanding of your job position. I disagree with the fact that anybody can walk in from any walk of life as a leader and be a CISO. I don't think that's possible because you have to have an understanding of technology and cybersecurity in general so that you can make sure to set up the right roadmap and, match your gaps. I know that you can have a team around you that does that, but if you can't talk positively about what you're doing and why you're doing it, then you can't lead the team. You need to be that North Star and say, we have 100 priorities, but here's the top 10 that are going to move the needle, and I'm driving these projects forward. That's so important. And so I think that you have to have some technical acumen. I don't think you have to be, completely super technical IT forensics level, right? So I think that is definitely not necessary. And we have to be careful here because a lot of people who are duly qualified to be a CISO have imposter syndrome, and they're being held back by their own opinion of themselves because they don't think they're good enough. And so us sitting here and saying you have to be all these things to become a CISO, we're making that worse with those folks. And so I want to say to those people who are in the positions to move into a CISO role that are doubting themselves, we all have doubted ourselves at one point or another, and you just have to take that step, that leap of faith. And so with that said, I think it has to be a foundation of technology knowledge so that you can hold your own gravitas in the room you go into, but also you don't have to be an expert. You can learn it as you go, put a good team around you. CISOs are now more and more risk executives. You have to be able to translate technical jargon into something that a non-technical board will understand. And so if you can do that pretty well, be personal and be a storyteller, I think you could be successful, and you can certainly grow into the role. There's tons of support around for new CISOs or deputy CISOs who are looking to take that jump into it. So that's my first. I'll stop there, Daniel.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, right? Because I think not every single CISO role is the same. Not every organization needs the same type of CISO, and that's just the fact of it. So if you were in let's say an organization that is heavily dependent on compliance and governance and regulations,
like finance or healthcare,
yeah, financial institutions, maybe government, right? You would probably want somebody who's more inclined to be stronger in that area. And now those people through their career may not have been a security operations person, have never been a pen tester, right? So you just have to, but they do know what that entails because they've probably gone through a ton of audits and reading reports and writing policies. So they understand that area, but they don't need to necessarily know it. But they, if you're looking at some other organizations, like let's say a tech company, you may want somebody who's a little bit more technical, right? Doesn't mean that person doesn't know the compliance pieces. They're just going to go out and hire somebody that really knows it really well and have that person on their team, right? Yeah. So you hire for your weaknesses, but you have to understand where your weaknesses are, and you have to understand what the business needs are in order to balance it all out.
Yeah. Well, so among all the different comments, because there's a lot of comments on this post. There's a few hundred comments actually. And as I scroll through and I look for the ones with the most engagement per comment, right? And the one that comes up says, as the kind of like the main punchline is, you can't defend the castle if you've never held a sword.
Interesting one.
So I would steer clear of generalizations and absolutes. I think that there are certain cases, and especially in the mid-market and mid-enterprise, where a company who may have never had a CISO ever, they're going to promote their IT director, maybe their security engineer, as an example, to lead cybersecurity. Now, is that a CISO role in another company? Probably not. But it's a CISO role for that person to get their foot in the door and actually have a budget, maybe write policy and determine direction. So I think that, as Damien said, every company is different, and every size of company matters to what type of a CISO you have. A good example is if you're a software company putting out, as an example, identity protections, you're going to want to make sure you have a CISO that understands IDPs and IDMs, and so that you can't have a hack on that level at yourself. You see major breaches in IDPs before, and that's a big problem for those companies, especially in line of sales.
I do want to go back to, so your question about the castle. The problem with that statement is more strategic, right? If you think that you needed to have a sword or carry a sword in order to defend the castle, your view of it may be skewed to the swordsman. What about the archers, right? The archers will probably have a different view of it as well. And so and then maybe even the people that build the moats and the walls. That's another defense that you're not even thinking about. So this is more of a strategic conversation of how do I protect that castle? And I don't think you necessarily need to carry the sword to say, you just have to understand strategic defense and where to place people or where to place your defenses, right?
Yeah, because I guess if you kind of take that analogy, you only need the sword for hand-to-hand combat when they're close
range, right?
Yeah, but if they never get in, what are you worried about?
Or you hold them off with archers in a far distance, or catapults,
or a trebuchet, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you say it? Trebuchet?
I don't know.
It's the one where it's like,
yeah, the
catapult. Yeah, I think trebuchet is like a fancy term for that. I don't know. I gotta check with my AI soon. But yeah, like you're just like throwing lava, like not lava, but like fire bombs, napalm over the wall. If they never get to the wall, why do I need a sword?
I think it's one of the things that makes cybersecurity such an amazing industry to be, is the diversity of thought that we have here from people from all walks of life. As we have talked about, people transitioning from the military as an example. They may have been physically guarding, bases and people, and they transition into a technical role, and then they move up into a CISO. I think you still have to have some foundational technical knowledge. You can't just walk in and be a CISO, no technical ability. But I think people who have worked in a flexible environment where every day that you go to work is different and you have a different adversary every day and a different attack type every day, people who understand that and are flexible to that are very effective at cybersecurity because they're used to being on call 24/7, responding to, important incidents with, urgency and then taking care of business.
If the answer is it depends, why are there so many people on one side or the other in the conversation? Like, does that just speak to the fact that people that have an opinion haven't thought about the nuance? And then if they haven't thought about the nuance, is that a risk?
You have to dig deeper into who these people are. I don't know. I don't know what their backgrounds are. Are they CISOs today? And then are the ones who are technical are trying to defend their technical background?
Oh,
right. So they're a little biased. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Global Information Security Executive and CISO, Global Director of IT Operations, Global CISO, Cybersecurity Leader.
You have to remember that people respond from the position they're in, and they may not understand the nuance of the question. So not saying that anybody's right or wrong in that thread, but I'm just saying that I ask people to, expand their perspective and look at it from different, walks of life. I think that people can come from many places to be successful as a CISO, but I also agree that they don't just walk in from another walk of life into that role and are successful. I think they need to have worked in a technical role to understand that urgency and that nuance of cybersecurity.
Yeah, I think so. So when I was saying from any background, I was thinking like postgraduate, like college, right? Not like 20 years in as a business manager and then going to a CISO, right? I think and we even know people too that have non-technical degrees that are great CISOs, right? So I think that's it's more coming from the point of,
yeah, I mean, there's great CISOs that have music degrees. We know one of them been on this podcast.
Yeah. Shout out to Lester G. So, and maybe that's kind of where some of my inspiration comes from is like when he graduated, right? He graduated with a degree in music. I believe it was clarinet, was his instrument. So, but that was postgraduate, I suppose is the right term, but it's not say he was he wasn't a professional musician for 20 years and then stepped into a security role, right? I think that's definitely not the same as saying non-technical or non-cyber or like non-IT specific degrees. So when I said that I think maybe Troy thought I meant like you could be like a business manager or from some other part of the spectrum and then going in. But our podcast is now AI powered. I don't know if you guys know this, but it is. It's ChatGPT powered, the free version. I don't even pay for this info. So let me run some numbers by both of you. And so the question that I asked was more so around the technical versus non-technical CISOs. And what it's saying, according to the most recent data that it has, is, and I haven't checked to see if it is hallucinating. So we'll just put that out there, footnote out there. 76% of CISOs come from a mostly technical background. 61 to 62% have graduated with degrees in STEM versus 36 to 46 in business management, depending on the year and the region. But here's an interesting fact, or at least according to AI. Technical background CISOs earn roughly 15% more on average than non-technical risk compliance background CISOs in some of these reports. That to me seems interesting because now there's a pay gap between some of these different positions for the same position, but different skill sets that are, I guess, filling that role.
That's interesting.
So does that mean that the business sees the value in the technical aspect of it and that they're willing to pay more for it? Or those people are just better at negotiating?
Yeah, I don't know what those numbers are based off of, so I can't say.
Mm-hmm.
So I would.
They're AI generated, so they might be hallucinated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't seen that. I haven't heard that, but that's an interesting fact.
Yeah, so the site or citation is from MES Computing is where that came from. And I have the hyperlink I can probably drop in for anyone else who wants to read through that. But I do find that interesting that it says, as far as some other things go too, is that on Dark Reading, right, which is a site that we use fairly often for some of the articles, 61% of CISOs held a graduate degree in STEM in 2022. Whereas 46 of them had a STEM degree in 2021. And most CISOs still come from technical backgrounds. So IANS report said as of 23 through 24 is 76% of CISOs have a mostly technical background. And 22% come from risk and compliance as their primary path.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a good split. So I guess if you're starting your career in cyber, I think we see that though. Most people are going more technical. They're learning more technical skills. Mm-hmm. I wonder though if that skew is too far to technical versus risk. Like Troy had mentioned, there are some really good leaders who understand risk and can explain those really well. And I think if you're going to present to the board or to other executives and the business, they listen more in terms of what the impact is to the business. Yeah.
Well, so that kind of leads into the next interesting bullet point is that it says the role, even AI says this, right? The role is evolving and broader skills beyond technical are increasingly required and valued. So specifically, it says CISOs are being asked to act more like business leaders by aligning cyber risk with overall business risk and reporting to the boards, etc. We've seen that. And then the other point that they say is...
I think that's a great place to stop you there, friend, because I think that it's so important for CISOs to understand that, what you just said. It's absolutely critical to empower the business to do what they do. You know, cybersecurity has always been looked at as the department of no, but we have to be the ones who are out in front saying, yes, but here's how you do it safely. But also we should be partnering with those business units that are going to market with a new product or a new product line or a new AI project or something, and really just sitting down with them and saying, can I listen and see what you're doing and maybe help you somehow? Maybe I can help you with the technology side of it is to do it more efficiently, but also to do it more securely, because the last thing you want to do is what I would call vibe coding with AI and then find out 2 months later that, you know, your data was being exfiltrated unknowingly. So, you know, those kind of things, I think CISOs have a really big opportunity to position themselves at the front of the business, at the front office, so that you can help make money for the business safely and really put some risk mitigation strategies in place that help them move faster to product, but also move safely.
And Troy, I want to correct you on something. It's not, it's no longer the Department of No, N-O. It needs to be the Department of No, K-N-O-W, where the department really knows what's going on and knows how to enable the business.
Eminem will be proud of you right there.
Yeah.
There's like a double entendre, right? I keep saying it. I think that's right. maybe I'm so dependent on AI now that I can't even think for myself. But Troy did say something interesting, and it's that not all there's a lot of nuance, right? But not all of it has to be technical. And so I had this thought when Troy was speaking, and I want to ask you guys this because I think might have a really good answer from both of you. It is, do you think that a CISO has to be able to accept the fact that they could be wrong? And I'll clarify what I mean by that is, so when we're talking 76% are mostly technical, right? I went to school for engineering, right? It's definitely a BSc is considered a technical graduate degree. And the one thing that I hate the most, like if there's one thing, I hate being wrong. Like I will, and this is a very, maybe like a characteristic trait that's bad for me is, I've been told by multiple people that I have to learn to say sorry, right? So when I was in college and I was working at a bank, I got in a big fight with the branch manager because I wasn't willing to say that I was sorry. And personally, I have a lot of times where I should say sorry, but I don't, right? And more so recently, it's been something that I've kind of realized. And I think it's just part of my personality where it's like, I just want to be right. And if I'm not right, that means I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, that's almost like a flaw. That's even worse, right? Than having to say you're sorry. So I'd rather be wrong and not say sorry than have to say sorry. Cause like sorry just is like maybe just my own way of accepting the fact that I was wrong, right? So that's the background for that answer. So, or not answer, but that's the background for my thought process. So I want to translate that into, now if a CISO is technical, do they have to be willing to accept the fact that they could be wrong or that they might not have made the right choice in their role to be a CISO? Because that would require...
So I think most, and Troy, back me up on this, if you ask most CISOs, they'll tell you, we don't make the decision, not in the dark, right? That's not, that's not the way it should be handled. You have a team that's probably way more technical than you are at this point, even if you have a technical background, who can hopefully make the right decision that you're going to put your trust into. And you have to trust your team.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I think that it's so super important to understand that we are wrong multiple times a day, and it's okay to be wrong as long as you learn from it and you move quickly and you acknowledge it. I think that we have seen cybersecurity leaders who, try to prove a point that they're right all the time and they're hard to work with. And that hubris is what really stops programs from moving forward. That gap between IT and cybersecurity, the cyber guy always has a hammer and they say, well, we have to do this because it's security and I get my way or the highway kind of thing. That's when you really start having a detrimental program in cybersecurity. You need to be able to work together. You need to say, I can be wrong. This industry moves at such a rapid pace that the information is changing all the time. So what was right yesterday might be wrong today. And I am very quick to point.
Well, because the attack vector changes.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. We're never right all the time. And if you think you're right all the time, then you should do some introspection.
Well, if you're right today, you're not going to be right tomorrow. If you go back to the whole, because I like the whole war type of war games, right? The strategy between protecting that castle. Well, today, you might have the right amount of soldiers with swords, but not enough to hold them off, right? So, and where you place them. And so if you do get some breaches in that defense, well, you just have to learn how to adjust. But you have to recognize that, hey, this is not working, so I need to do something different. And the same thing happens in cyber defense, where the attacks don't stay constant. The attackers will find different ways to attack you and to get through your defenses. And we always say, defense in depth have different layers, and not every layer is going to be the same.
Yeah, cybersecurity is an industry built on trust, period. And so leaders who continue to not admit that they're wrong when it's very obvious to everyone that they are wrong just erodes that trust, and that's not acceptable. I think transparency is certainly something we could work on, and reducing our hubris for sure. Having no egos here. We want to see others and lift others up and do the right thing in our job and be transparent. I think that's the most important lessons you can learn at this point as a leader to make sure that your program is successful.
So more important than technical skills, I think you alluded to some of this in that post, probably be more strategic, right? Because not every technical person or non-technical person can be strategic. Be a leader and build consensus among your team, right? Those are way more important than whether you're technical or not technical. I mean, you're still going to understand components of cybersecurity, but if you can't lead a department, lead a team, and project the strategy, communicate that both down to the team and up through the executive staff, you're not going to be successful.
So I'm going to take that answer, I'm going to package it up, and I'm going to reread the last part of what AI told me to my question, right? And we're going to go word for word here. It says, best practices seem to favor hybrid CISOs, those who are technical enough to understand the domain, but strong in business, risk communication, strategy, and leadership.
There you go.
Boom.
I'm AI. Damien AI. Just
DAMI. You literally have AI in your name. Damien AI. All right, folks. We're charging for this next time around. Damien is AI. It's in his name, literally. It is. That's just what we're gonna go with. But that's interesting, right? Because essentially, what it's saying, if it's not hallucinating, is exactly what you said. And you don't even have a phone in front of you. You're not even reading. This is live stream from you.
Yeah, I didn't even know you looked that up.
No, I didn't look it up. Well, it was part of what I had asked, and then towards the end of it, it said essentially this is a summary. Like this is what we're seeing, or this is the data points we're connecting. Is this specifically what you said? So either you prepare for this, or you are AI. One of the two. I don't know. But it is interesting because that's kind of where I was in the beginning. Is like you don't have to be on one side or the other. You can kind of be in the middle, and you can kind of draw inspiration from different parts of the team. But as long as you know enough to say,
yeah, I'll tell you this. I've worked under CISOs that don't even have a degree, still great CISOs, right? I'm not saying they're not technical. They're technical, but they never went to school. And then I've worked under CISOs that are not technical. So, they relied on me to do all the strategy and the technical components, which I liked, right? It's not, I wouldn't knock the people who are in their positions that don't have a technical background, because if they're strategic enough and they know how to lead a team and they know how to pull the talent and the knowledge
from the workforce, then you're good. Because then you can, I just lost it. There was one comment that was in the thread, and let me find it real quick, where it kind of said something that I thought was interesting, which is kind of along the lines of what you had just said. So let me just find it. And it was very almost prescriptive in how they wrote this, but it said, in their view, CISO needs to have technical depth to earn credibility, right? Strategic clarity to earn influence, and the fusion of both to earn a seat at the table.
I would challenge the technical part to earn credibility.
Okay.
Because I think if you come in and say, look, I'm not really the expert here. I've never actually worked in a SOC, but you have the right team that is doing it. And you tell them, hey, explain to me exactly what needs to happen here. What do you need to be successful here? And you are transparent with what the business needs. Then you can probably work that out, right? I don't think the team's going to say, oh, that's a terrible CISO. She's never worked in a SOC. I don't think that's the case.
So should we call this person and tell them that you say that? Because you're connected to them.
No, I'm just saying it's not mandatory, right? Does it help you? Possibly. Has it helped me in my career? Absolutely.
But is it a requirement?
It's not a requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, I know hundreds of good CISOs that never worked in the SOC. That's for sure. If that's a requirement, then all of us are out of a job, right? I mean, I did work in a SOC, but that's a anomaly.
I would hope so. A SOC seems like a very like prison sentence type of role. And maybe I'm just, because
No.
The security operations center is a great place to work. The telemetry, putting together a story, an investigative timeline. You're a detective. Every day is different. It's really, really great job.
I know some analysts that love it and have been doing it their entire career. I would never want to do anything else.
Really? Okay.
So, then there's people who go into the SOC thinking this is a entry level job and that's it. And I want to move up and out.
Yeah.
So it just depends what you want. I think having somebody super senior in an analyst position is very valuable to an organization. And it's very tough to find those people who like that work.
You know what it reminds me of is like a farmer, like someone that's been farming for their entire life, but they don't run a farming business. They're just the farmer. And if it comes to a crop and like something happens, like the weather, like you go to them and you say, hey, what am I supposed to do? Like, we just got hit with a dust storm. What do I do? They're like, back in my day, this is how we would fix it. And then this is what we would do. Like, they have the prescription of whatever it is that you need for the plant to help it grow, right? But they're not running a business. They're not like the senior farmer. They're there because they love it. They have a passion for it. And they know it in and out. Like they say, something like the back of your hand. Like, this is what they know.
Well, it's like some chefs, right? They don't have a recipe.
No.
They're just going off of memory or what they feel they should be putting into the dish.
Yeah. Like whenever you taste something, like, oh, it needs more salt. It's like, oh, it needs a little bit of this. It needs a little bit. Like, I've never cooked with like red wine that I'm aware of, or like, some people like cook with wine in stainless pots and stuff. And like, it's really good food, like high-end restaurant. I've never done that, but I would love, at one point in my life, I'd love to be the person that can just like pull a bottle of wine down and make like a sauce with it and have it be like the best tasting sauce. But I'm not there. But back to the SOC is there are people that are experts in these roles that, like you said, they don't move up because they don't want to. Or maybe they love what they do. And
well, I mean, innovation happens there as well, because now we're talking about leveraging AI in the SOC and doing more automation. So there's a lot of innovation that happens within the SOC anyways. And like we said, the attack vector changes. So it's not like you're looking at the same alerts all the time. Those evolve over the years, even sometimes months, if the attack vectors change. And there is still excitement and things that you can improve upon.
So if I were to rephrase that, would you say it's accurate to say that experience breeds innovation?
No, I mean, you could not have experience and come up with these crazy ideas that innovate.
But I'm thinking more so like if someone's been through a certain situation so many times, they can kind of think of how to get through it, right? It becomes like second nature to them to be able to fix these problems. And then when it comes to fixing, because they're so well versed in the different outcomes of different scenarios, they then can think of alternative ways to solve it versus, maybe someone that hasn't seen it 50 or 100 times. Maybe is where my thought was, but maybe not. I don't know.
But happen. I think necessity is the mother of invention. So as you see a need, fill a need. But there's other great companies that are innovating at a rapid pace that may not be working with all that experience in the SOC, et cetera.
Yeah, that just sounds like business. You just find a problem and you fix it, right? People, here's the crazy part, is people will pay millions of dollars to fix a problem that doesn't cost them millions of dollars. Like, it blows my mind to think about, but I've seen it firsthand where some people are willing to spend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on something just because it's a pain for them to deal with. That's this topic for another day. So to wrap up, technical versus non-technical, are we all in agreement that there's not one side or the other? It's more of like, if you took both sides from technical and non-technical and you threw them into a blender and whatever you got out of that is where it should be. It's a little bit of everything. It's a cocktail.
It's a mix of things. Everyone's path to becoming a CISO is different. There's never going to be two people that follow the same path. Right. Your journey is going to be different. And then each role, once you get there, is different. And so if that's your ambition, right? If you're listening to this and your ambition is to become a CISO one day and you're, an entry level or mid-level cyber person, just really start thinking about the business impact of what you do. Because I think a lot of people in that security analyst, security engineering role don't think about how impactful what they do on a day-to-day basis is to the organization.
Yeah, and I think that I just want to say a completely non-technical person who's never worked in technology or cyber walking in as the chief information security officer at a company, they're going to have a hard time to find success. Their team's not going to have faith in them. They're going to have a hard time understanding the concepts of what they're dealing with. And then at the end of the day, they're not going to understand what's happening to the business. So I don't think somebody who's completely non-technical would be successful in this role, but it takes a really good hybrid between a technical manager and a business risk executive to be able to be successful here and really shine.
I don't think it's impossible, Troy. I think, yeah, it is tougher, but I don't think it's impossible. I think there probably are. And if you are one of those CISOs that kind of stepped in as, let's say like you were a project manager.
Oh,
right? Because I think I've seen I've seen that happen on the IT side. Mm-hmm. You're a project manager, and now you're the CIO.
Definitely,
but they're in a technical role as a project manager of a technical team.
True,
they have technical acumen. If you came from accounting, and the company said, "Okay, accounting person, you're going to take over being a CISO now," no way. I mean, it's impossible to.
No. But if that happened, I would say if that were to happen, the goal of the company was financial. We were putting in an accountant to head this department because you guys are spending too much money and we need to control it. And their whole function is to control spend.
Stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I also think that there's another dimension to this, is that the industry and the CISO role itself is quickly evolving because of AI and the way the business is evolving. You know, we are literally going through an industrial revolution of AI. And so I think the CISO role may be completely different in 2 years. And so the conversations we're having today, you know, in October of 2025 may absolutely not be relevant in October of 2020.
Yeah, the titles are changing because now the CISO, the I stands for information. Are you only protecting information? We talked about physical security at the beginning of this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So sometimes some organizations are dropping that I, and now it's just CSO, Chief Security Officer, because it is
Chief Trust Officer is another one I've heard.
And then Chief Trust Officer is coming up, right?
Yeah, I've heard of that come up at one company already. I didn't look into it too much. I just heard about the role, kind of working with someone else that was in security. So this is probably the most serious question I'm ever going to ask both of you guys. If there was a small business that had 500 employees, could I be the CISO for that business? Based on what you know, based on what I've said, based on
100%. I mean, you like to claim average firm, but you're pretty technical and you've been around technology for many, many years. You understand the concepts. I think you could step in with some support from, you know, outside and inside personnel. You would be very successful firm.
The only thing I would say at a 500 person company, you probably wouldn't have a large enough team
to support.
So you probably have to do some hands-on and you'd have to learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and have an external, you know, third party to help out. You know, when you're that small, you definitely rely a lot on third parties to help you do that. But Fern, you could be successful there. Well, I advocate. Yeah.
Some of these family run businesses and small businesses, they're not going to allow you to go spend money on consultants. We talked about how expensive some of those are, right?
Yeah.
Last week.
Yeah, no, they can definitely get pretty expensive depending on what they give you too. You might pay $400,000.
So, I was thinking of like a VAR, right? You know, the person or, you know, the company you buy your software through and provide you some services. You know, maybe it's a little project here, a little project there, not a consultant necessarily, but these are the people you buy your software through. So they have a skin in the game to help you. You know, if you buy Microsoft through them as an example, maybe get some professional services hour to help you tune your IDP.
Yeah, I would
like that. You could leverage. Be pretty successful.
Don't forget, right? What does the V, the value?
Value.
V. Oh yeah, the VAR, the V in VAR.
Yeah, value. So make sure you get your value out of your VARs. One of the things that you would do is leverage them for, hey, tell me what your other customers are buying. What are they looking at? So it cuts down on your research time of what you potentially need.
Yeah, you don't even ask them what other customers are buying, because that's like me saying, like, where does everyone go for the best, or where does everyone go for pizza? Like, a lot of people go to Domino's, and I'm going to tell you firsthand, Domino's is not very good. But if you were to ask someone that sold pizza, like a distributor for pizza, and they said, oh, everyone buys Domino's, you go buy it, It's a safe choice, but is it the best choice? No. What's the place that we went to?
I was just going to say the DTF Cyber Podcast did a recce to one of the best pizza places I've ever had in Arizona.
Craft 64. It's called Craft 64. There's a location in Scottsdale and in Chandler, Arizona.
Yeah. So if you're going to ask a VAR that you work with, so say you're on the customer side and you're asking a VAR, you don't ask them what the other customers are buying, because that doesn't tells you that they bought Domino's. What you ask them is, where have you had customers with the most heartache or heartburn from a purchase that they made? Because if you take the idea of the food and say, where's the worst restaurant that people can go? People will, hell, you never want to go here. You never want to go there. Right. But some people might go there and they might say, oh, you should go here. So if you ask them to say, where's the worst place to go eat? You're going to get an honest answer. So if you say, hey, which manufacturer have your customers bought that they've regret or that they've scrapped, that it was too hard to implement?
And which ones do they love?
Exactly. That's where you're going to get a better answer.
Okay. So use your VARs as your personal technical Yelp.
Yeah. Soundboard, essentially. Yeah. That's the whole point. It's like they've deployed so many things from so many different clients that they've seen the good and they've seen the bad. Whether or not they tell you the truth is another thing, but that's where you just got to trust the people.
Yeah. And your peers too, right? That's why the whole peer networking helps, because you just ask other peers, what do you like? What have you implemented lately that you really found fast ROI? Circle
of friends, right?
Yeah.
This inner circle. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So Troy, I'll send you $20. I'll just type it in on Zelle and send you $20 for,
there we go,
for giving me the shout out or saying that I could if I wanted to.
You got it.
But we're going to move into the next topic because we've only got a few minutes left. Which is the Discord breach. Now, technically, incidents. It was an incident. We don't say breach around here, but I just did. So the Discord incident.
But I think it was due to a third party.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. So it wasn't internal to their servers. What it was is a third party that was handling their customer service. Starts with a Zen, ends with Desk is the party. So we didn't say their name. We just said what it rhymes with. But yes, this third party is the one that were not exfiltrate. Oh, they exfiltrate 1.5 terabytes of data. And so this is, I have a problem with this statement or what was being extorted. It's government IDs.
Well, because I think they probably had a collection of driver's license.
Yeah. So that's my thought is, why does I understand why, right? They have that because the things that can be said on Discord could be malicious for kids to see, or like something I wouldn't want my daughters to see. So I get the fact they require ID. Why is that photo of someone's ID being saved somewhere that could then be stolen later? I have a problem with that. As a newly appointed CISO, according to Troy, I have a problem with the fact that there is a company out there that is taking government IDs, presumably as a way to validate that the user behind the account is okay to or approved to go into the chats, right, of legal age or for whatever thing, rated R, PG-13, they qualify for whatever it is. I get why you need that, right? I don't get and I don't understand why that information was being saved. Because now this happens and it's an issue.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe they need to save it for compliance reasons.
For what? You're validating someone. So 20 years ago, you could have said name when you go on YouTube, even today, when were you born? You give them the month and the year. You don't give them any information. And obviously you can lie, but the premise is the same as they're validating your age.
Well, have you ever been to a bar where they check your ID, but they scan it?
Yeah.
So are you worried that they're saving your ID there too?
No, because they don't have a physical copy of it. What they have is a link of the barcode, like a QR code or the code.
Are you sure?
No.
Well, I would take a step back and say that, a lot of times there's regulations for child exploitation that the government puts on places to validate the age of their users, especially Facebook or, some of the social media sites, to make sure that children are not, in the wrong chat rooms or getting, exploited. So you may have to keep that for 7 years, depending on the law for that regulation. You may have to prove, during an investigation 5 years from now that, you validated the age via a driver's license. So there might be regulations behind that. I don't know. I do think that every company should delete data that's not necessary as soon as they possibly can. If there's no reason to have it, don't have it. But we see oftentimes that data is just sitting around waiting to be taken, that was sometimes forgot about as well. So there's two sides of that coin. But if you have a regulatory reason or driver, there might be a number of years you have to keep it. Otherwise, they should have gotten rid of it.
Yeah, because in that way you can go back and say, this is the ID I got sent, and maybe it was fake or maybe it was altered. We don't know, right? So there is probably a need to save it. I'm not disputing that. I agree with Troy. If you don't need to keep it, don't keep it. But there may have been a reason. But now, if you're going to keep it, make sure it's encrypted.
Yeah. Or make sure it's just somewhere in the
one other thing I was going to say is, that, I'm not going to name one of my favorite vendors here in the DSPM space, but one of the things that they find very early on as a value is duplicate data. Companies don't even realize how many copies of data they have. Sometimes these DSPMs or DLP solutions come in, they install, and they say, well, you've got 5 copies of this driver's license as an example. You only need to keep 1 official copy. So, you can reduce your cost. Imagine if you're keeping that data in a cloud repository, like an S3 bucket or some Microsoft store, blob storage, that costs you money every single day. So the more you can reduce the amount of data you're saving, you can reduce cost, and you're certainly reducing risk by not having it sitting out there waiting to be found.
So here's the interesting part. Everything we've talked about has been compliance and risk-based. So what kind of CISO do you think would have been ideal?
The kind that can technically tell you where it's at, and the kind that can tell you what compliance regulation is.
I guess both, right? Because a technical CISO would have asked about the controls, the technical controls, and maybe a compliance CISO would have asked for the, I don't know, technical controls. Same thing, I guess.
No, the compliance side might have asked questions on regulatory requirements, like from the government, like Troy said.
Well, how long do I need to keep it?
Yeah, what sort of what's the phrase that they use? Not period of performance, but like when they have to archive emails, like 10 years.
Statute limitation or
yeah. But I mean, I'm talking about how to, I guess, okay, how long you're going to keep it, but how do we protect that data when we have it?
Yeah. The fact that...
So I don't think it really matters. You could be somebody who's coming up from that risk perspective, or on the technical side, but you still have to understand the risk, and you still have to understand the technical controls.
Yeah. I can get behind that. That makes sense to me. I think it just leans back into the answer that AI Damien told us, which is you need a little bit of everything, right? It's not one way or the other. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's more or less a cocktail, which I think is, again, important. Like even in a situation like this, is whether you're very technical or you're not, and you're more so, maybe say you're just on the compliance side or the GRC side of the house, it doesn't mean you don't qualify. It just means that maybe there's little things you have to pick up along the way to kind of meet the full, the recipe as it is, in a sense. Because even in a situation where 2 million ID cards, 185,000.
I had read though that they said the impact was only like 70,000 users, not the full amount that was reported. It
might have been. Maybe that was on a different article, but this one is saying based on the size of the data that was pulled out, it should be roughly 2.2 million photos. Now, whether those all, like you said, 70,000 or more or less, it doesn't actually explicitly say. Actually, no, hang on. So Discord is confirming the incident, but they're disputing the scale of the incident. So they're saying instead of 2.2 million, it's closer to 70,000.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, so that's what Discord is saying. So they're kind of limiting.
Oh, because that makes it so much better, right? I mean, 70,000, at least it's not 2.2 million. I mean, come on, 70,000 is a lot of people.
Well, how much credit monitoring do they have to pay for? 70,000 versus 2 million. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is that so 70,000 people's information and driver's license out there for identity thieves to use against them. So please lock your credit, make sure you're doing all the things. But, we have already assumed that all of our information is already out there on the dark web and that people are trying to take advantage of us. So I lock my credit and I monitor it, of course. But, again, we can't downplay the significance of 70,000 users. And I know businesses are trying to do that with it wasn't 2.5 million. It was only 70,000. I don't like the word only. It's too many.
Would you say one's too many?
Absolutely. That means the company didn't do their job. They didn't vet their third parties. They didn't have the safeguards in place to monitor it, and they allowed it to happen. And we just keep forgetting that because we have breach fatigue. But we used to not accept this. It used to be a big deal when somebody had a data loss of this magnitude. And now it's like, it's only 70,000.
Yeah. It's like, we're just used to like the violence, just like, just another, another slap. Okay. Well, I think, so we covered technical versus non-technical. We cover the fact that I could qualify as a small business CISO or a mid-market size CISO. I don't know if I actually trust you guys. Well, maybe. Like, I think what matters is the fact that if you can make the right phone calls to the right people and get the right answers, I agree with you. But if I'm on an island by myself, do not bet on me.
Well, it'd be interesting. It's one thing to have a debate in, a site like LinkedIn. It's hard to get all of your ideas across and have the back and forth. Mm-hmm. So it's good to just talk about it. If any of you are listening to this, drop us some comments. What your thoughts are. Let us know.
Give us a thumbs up if you think it's a technical CISO is the way. Or give us a thumbs up if
not sure that there's a black and white there but I think like we said in the podcast, we're willing to be wrong. We're willing to listen and willing to have, a new perspective.
I was just trying to get likes, like,
oh yeah.
I was regardless of what you feel, drop a like. And for those of you that listen that, it's kind of like a little secret that you listen to the podcast, just drop a like because no one knows that you like the video. Like no one sees that. Because I do know some people that's like, I love the podcast. I love listening to it, but man, I can't tell, I can't ever like tell work about it or I can't like post about it. And I get that, but you can leave that like. So that was just my my plea for some likes, because sometimes I log on and I'm like, oh man, put all this work into this and I got like 2 likes and they were both me. Which by the way, Troy, you're supposed to check on Shannon's phone on which video she hasn't liked yet from the last episode where she was on. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if you did that, but
I did. Absolutely. And the root cause there was just listening but not liking. So we fixed that problem.
All right. It's been fixed. Any last thoughts before we run out?
No, good conversation as usual.
Troy, you got anything?
Absolutely. That's it. Take care of your people. Take care of yourself.
All right. And with that, you now have the answer of technical or non-technical. It's not one side or the other. It's a little bit of both. We'll see you next week.